Rockstar gang, what up? What up? Appreciate everyone joining the live stream. Make sure you hit that pound that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Make sure you click that post notifications bell so you don't miss out on new content. Got a good one for you. So give me a minute while I set up something real quick here. We've already got Marcos Cash in the building. Chris is already in here. Chris, I'm going to just address that comment because you say we could have gotten, and then you say we got Fleece. So coulda, shoulda, woulda. I'll explain why. I'm going to explain. I'll address your comments though, Chris. I get why people feel that way. Why Chris, same way why Chris feels that way, but I see both sides of this. So let me. I'm going to work on something. Good morning to everyone. Everybody get in here, tap, share the live, subscribe, hit that like button. Working on a couple things here. Wanted to go live early today to address this. What up, Mad Chatter? Guys, as you're coming in, make sure you pound the like button. We're gonna. I know I said we're gonna start at 11:15, which we are. Letting some people get in here. Get started here in the next 3 minutes. Mad Chatter, it's about the HBO clip, the Hard Knocks HBO clip for the offseason New York Giants. That's what we're talking about today. We're going to break that down. We're going to break down the trade. And Matt tried to grab some brews from our absolutely. Guys, we've got 9 votes and only 8 likes. So get those likes up. Every live stream, our goal, man, here. The live stream goal every day is to get to 50 to 100 likes every live stream. All right, Panther Nation, do me a favor. All you guys that are coming in here, whether you're watching on Twitter, whether you're watching on TikTok, Actually, I need to start going live on TikTok. I've had a lot of people ask me to start going live on TikTok. Wherever you're watching, make sure you come over to the YouTube channel and just hit the like button and subscribe. That's what you can do to show your support. Supernova's in here. We're ready to get started here in the next 5 seconds. So, appreciate everyone that's in here. Kind of trying to wait for these late stragglers to get in here. All right. Y'all see super in the easy. So y'all see the title. Did the Giants fleece the Carolina Panthers in the Brian Burns trade? Right? Did the Giants get us? I'm really going to go in depth into this. Okay? I'm really going to go into depth to this for you guys. Number one, I'm really going to dive deep into this topic today. All right. Y'all know how I feel about Brian Burns. And y'all know that from when this happened. But this all starts. This Brian Burns trade controversy begins when back in November of 2022, when the contracts talks are kind of starting up. And then, of course, the trade, a lucrative trade offer from the Los Angeles Rams, when GM Scott Fitterer turned 2 first-round picks and a future third for Brian Burns. Part of me also wants to say this to the fleecing ordeal. Did we get fleece? I think that one thing is for sure, the word needs to be, or the phrase that needs to be said here is wait and see. Because let's see if all this depth that they've added into the pass rushing room, and they continue to rotate it, maybe they're going to add some to from the waiver wire, right? Who knows? This pass rushing room with how much depth is on it could be even better just because of how you can rotate guys in and out and how much depth you have. And, injuries happen and you still have someone that can step up in there. And you got Ejiro Evero as your defensive coordinator. So that's what I say to that. I think to this, I'm going to break this down though into really depth. But before we do that, we're going to go over and look at this short clip, right? This short clip from the HBO of Hard Knocks for the New York Giants that came out. What up, James? Right. We definitely need more. Again, we got to think about what we were able to add. And we'll break that down too. Hell, we'll go through the full roster of what we were able to grab, right? But here's the clip that everybody's talking about. All right. This is the clip that everyone is talking about to the whole fleece ordeal. Okay.
You guys want to move up to 6 from 33? No. Just checking. Never hurts to ask. Bean, you want to come up to 6? Where are you? You can't afford a top 10 pick.
They're COVID ones for Burns.
Okay, stop it right there. Look what he said. You want to give us 2 1s for Burns. Now let that sink for a second. Right? 2 1s for Burns. Now, watch how fast this changes, though. This is where I have to get on Dan Morgan a little bit. All right? This is where you have to be a man and stick to your guns. All right? I get that you want to be a good GM. I get that you want to make the right deals. You want to make the smart deals, the strategic moves. Sorry, strategic moves. Right? Oh, John Harbaugh. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to allude to that too. Don't worry. We're going to talk about Mr. Fitterer and how he fleeced the Carolina Panthers more than the Giants did, in my opinion.
Ooh.
So this is the Giants GM. This is Dan Morgan. Okay, obviously. This is the Giants GM. Matt Chatter. So look what he says here. So here, let's start it from the beginning.
I'm going
Just checking. You guys want to move up to 6 from 33? No.
But watch what
Just
Dan
checking.
Morgan says.
Never hurts to ask.
Well,
Bean, you
watch
want to come
how
up to
it
6?
changes in a
Where are you?
flick of a switch.
You can't afford a top 10 pick.
I want to get this. They have COVID ones for Burns.
Ooh.
That sounded an awful lot like the Panthers. Just let the Giants know that pass rusher extraordinaire Brian Burns is available.
There's Burns being an absolute factor, just wins off the ball.
Let's look at that little dip. That's so beautiful to change your levels and make yourself from a big, tall target to a tiny, little, small target.
I want to get this. They have COVID ones for Burns.
No. I mean, yes, but
Or one and something.
So you don't see
heading in the right direction.
And then he goes, I want or and. See, he said two wants. So here's the issue I have with this is that when you make an offer, right? Right, you're the one. You're the ball's in your. The ball was in Dan Morgan's court when this GM said that if he wanted to move up to 6, and that he could have moved up to 6, right? And they could have, of course, moved up to 6, and then but he was asking for 2 ones, right? He goes, okay, well, I'll give you 2 if you give me 2 ones for Brian Burns, basically. But then backs off, right? Because for some reason, when the guy goes, ooh, yes, but no, you should have just left it at that. Because now the ball's in his court to say, ooh, Brian Burns sounds ideal. Brian Burns sounds ideal. Because, again, you could have possibly still not, maybe if it wasn't 2 ones, you possibly he would have came back and said, hey, where can you meet me in the middle of instead of 2 ones? Can we do 1 and something else? You know, John, I never said, just a reminder, y'all, I never said that DJ Moore was not elite and not a wide receiver 1. I never said that. I always believed DJ Moore is a wide receiver 1. I've always said that. Now, is he elite? I'm just not sure yet. I do think he's a wide receiver 1. I think he can be a Pro Bowl wide receiver 1. Now, again, when it came to the whole Brian Burns or trading Brian Burns to the Chicago Bears or DJ Moore, I think now I mean, I don't know how many of y'all feel that in this chat. Would y'all rather traded Burns for the Chicago thing, or would you rather traded DJ Moore? That's up to you. I would have rather traded Burns, in my opinion. At least I know that I'm getting 1,000 yards out of DJ Moore every year. I think he's a Pro Bowler for sure, John. I think he's a Pro Bowler for sure. But what I'm alluding to this clip is that you had him in the palm of your hands and then you backed off. I mean, you had him in the palm of your hands and then you backed off, right? That's the thing that I'm alluding to here is that, you know, you had him in the palm of your hands. So why in the world would you back off on it? You literally said, well, how about 2 first-round picks? Right? So here's the thing. Did the Giants fleece the Carolina Panthers? Let me put this in context for the Brian Burns saga, okay? That Brian Burns trade controversy began back in November of 2022. When our GM, incompetent GM, rejected a lucrative offer from the Los Angeles Rams, 2 first-round picks and a future third for Brian Burns. Scott Fitterer screwed the Carolina Panthers. Scott Fitterer screwed the Carolina Panthers because you had a chance to have. It was a third, John. It wasn't a second. You had 2. It came out a while, but at first it was a second, and then it came out that it was actually a third. So it was 2 first and a third. Still, either way, whether it was a first, second, or a third, right? Whatever it was, it doesn't matter. You still missed out on 2 first-round picks. Okay, you had them, and that's when the conversations really kind of started for him to get his contract because he was having such a great year back in 2022, right? Fast forward to where we are now. This guy was once considered a rising star, right? Was traded to the Giants. You got a 2024 second-round pick, right? And a pick at the 2025 rounder. And a 5th-round pick swap. Due to the fact that this guy demanded a $30 million per year contract, which I question whether that was a smart move or not. But I think the Panthers' decision was more a strategic one than it might seem at first glance, right? I mean, even for these perfect examples right here, you received that. You traded twice for Jonathan Brooks. Hell, don't forget about the fact. Actually, I'm going to allude to that a little bit more to this. But when you evaluate, all right, so let's evaluate Burns' value real quick. Okay. Let's evaluate Brian Burns' value. Okay. Gotta log in here. I want to evaluate his value. So share this tab instead. All right. Let's look when he got into the league. And yeah, 2019. Sorry. All right. 12 solo tackles, 2 assisted, 8 sacks. 2020. 31 solo tackles, 10 assists, 10 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. 2021. 31 tackles, 10 assists, 9 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. Okay. 30 solo tackles, 19 assisted, 13 sacks, 1 forced fumble. 30 solo tackles, 13 assists, 9 sacks, 1 forced fumble. So Brian Burns, to me, I think if we're looking at him from a value standpoint, he's undeniably a talented player. But the notion that this guy was worth $30 million per year makes me think a little bit. Right? Oh, because over 5 seasons, we looked at him. You look at every year that the sacks, right? That averages out to like 9 sacks per year. So a total of 46 sacks. He had 95 quarterback hits, 59 tackles for a loss. Impressive. These numbers don't place him in an elite tier. You want to see, here's the thing that you want to see someone that's an elite tier of his own, is a elite tier pass rusher. This guy, This is an elite pass rusher. This guy has done it like this since, let's see, maybe 27. I don't think he was, 2017. Okay. All right, 2017. So you look at Myles Garrett. You want to look at an elite pass rusher? Okay. Decent, a good, about the same as Brian Burns. I think Burns had 9 sacks or 8 sacks in his rookie year when we were looking at it. Okay, 15 sacks. Look at the grading here. Run defense and pass rush. There's a difference there when you look at the grades. Go look at Brian Burns' grades. Go look at Miles Sanders or Brian Burns. Why am I saying Miles Sanders? What the fuck? All right, so let's go to this. Here, we can compare the two. All right, here's Brian Burns. All right, so here is Myles Garrett rookie season. Myles Garrett rookie season and grades. Brian Burns rookie season and grades. But John, if you want to use the elite, if you want to say that Brian Burns is an elite pass rusher, we got to compare him to an elite pass rusher. Am I wrong? I mean, if we're going to compare Brian Burns to elite pass rusher, you have to compare him to these guys that are considered elite. Myles Garrett was a number 1 pick for a reason. I get that. Shouldn't we, if we're going to say Brian Burns is an elite pass rusher, then Burns should be, if people are going to say that, then we need to compare him to elite pass rusher. Am I wrong? Chat, tell me where I'm wrong, and then I'll tell me where I'm wrong. Because I mean, if we're gonna say this guy was an elite pass rusher, we have to compare him to elite pass rushers. Okay, let's continue. All right, so here we go. This was his 2nd year in the league, Myles Garrett. Look at that run defense. All right, here's Brian Burns' 2nd. Pass rush. His pass rush in his 2nd year, Brian Burns' pass rush 2nd year was better than Myles Garrett. But Myles Garrett's run defense is 20% higher. Myles Garrett's overall was better. All right, let's go to Myles Garrett's 3rd year. Let's go to Brian Burns' 3rd year. Okay, here's Brian Burns' 3rd year. Overall, 60.8. Run defense, 43.8. Pass rush, 73. Look at this. Run defense, 63. Overall, though, 86.5. Pass rush, 91.6. Okay? I'm just saying, if we're going to compare, we're going to go, we're going to say, you guys out there that are making the narrative that Brian Burns is elite, let's compare him. Let's compare him. You guys, because there's people out there that think that Brian Burns was the best thing they've seen on this team since sliced bread. All right. So this is Brian Burns' 3rd year. All right, check that out. Here's Myles Garrett's 3rd year, okay? They're about the same, honestly. 3rd years were about the same. Overall, PFF gave Myles Garrett a better one. A better overall. Okay? Here we are in the 4th year. All right, so here's here's Myles Garrett's 4th year. 30 solo tackles, 5 assisted, 13 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. Okay. Surprisingly enough, which I don't understand his overall is why PFF graded him this week, right? Overall, 64.5, run defense 60.9, pass rush 71.3, but he had 30 solo tackles, 19 assists, 13 sacks, 1 forced fumble. Right? This was his best year by far. Okay? But then we look at Myles Garrett, man, and this is where it gets nuts. Right? I mean, you can't even compare the two. Right? You can't even compare the two. So the value, right? If we're talking about Brian Burns and the value, okay? Again, we're talking about this guy's value. Those numbers just, to me, there's a couple there that were very close. But then as you saw Myles Garrett, as time goes on, the guy was hitting 18 to 20, 19 sacks, right? And everybody wants to talk about the sacks. Those numbers that this guy is putting up compared to a guy like Myles Garrett, because you want to put him in the elite category, so we got to compare him to an elite pass rusher. They don't even come close to Myles Garrett. Burns' production is, I would say it's at least solid. It doesn't justify that this guy deserved a $30 million annual salary, especially for a team like the Panthers, who already had a tight salary cap. And a team at the time, too, when they were finally going through this, and the contract negotiations started in the 2023 offseason, you waited too long. Scott Fitterer ruined it for the Panthers to re-sign this guy anyways when he turned down that lucrative deal from the Rams and didn't try to re-sign him at that trade deadline or at the end of the 2022 season. You had your chance, but you messed around too much, right? So, again, it's really you put the blame on Scott Fitterer. You don't blame anybody else except Scott Fitterer. Right? Now, again, when we watch that video clip from the HBO special Hard Knocks of the Giants, Dan Morgan shouldn't have flipped the switch like that. He should have said 2 first-round picks and sat there and wait and let that guy think about it. Because I guarantee you, that guy, the GM of the Giants, would have came back and said, hey, where can we meet at? Because I still think you probably could have still fleeced, you could have possibly fleeced him, or you would have at least gotten a first-round pick out of him. At least. But let's break down the trade here. All right, so the Panthers trade Burns for the Giants, right, for that 39th pick and the 141 first overall picks in 2024, and then a conditional 5th-round pick in 2025. Now, this might seem like a low return compared to the Rams' earlier offer, but the Panthers were operating under different conditions, right? Burns had a down season in 2023, right? And his high contract demands diminished his market value. It did. So the Panthers had to balance immediate return with long-term flexibility. Does that make sense? Because you have to be able to achieve freeing up cap space and acquiring valuable draft picks, right? So they had to be strategic in this front office when it came to the moves, right? Because you got to think about it this way. There are 3 things that Dan Morgan had to think about: cap space management, draft capital, and investment in the offense. So you trade Brian Burns, you freed significant cap space, right? And crucial for rebuilding their roster around Bryce Young, which helped them sign guys like Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. Okay. Draft capital. They didn't just accept the second round pick from the Giants, but you got to think about it this way. They didn't just accept that second round pick from the Giants. They leveraged it even further. They traded the 39th pick to the Los Angeles Rams. They acquired the 52nd pick, the 155th pick in that draft, and then got an additional second round pick in 2025. There's your draft flexibility and potential for possibly an impactful selection. Then the investment in offense. So the Panthers redirected their resources towards bolstering the offensive line, like I said, signing Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis to substantial contracts, right? Investment aligns with the strategy to protect Bryce Young, much like, and I like to compare it to this, how the Saints protected Drew Brees. And it worked out because when they did that, the Saints finally got over the hump and won a Super Bowl. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that Bryce Young's Drew Brees and we're going to win a Super Bowl. So don't take that into context. So you got, because I think that people don't look at this as from a broader perspective, because there is a broader perspective here. I think a lot of critics will argue that the Panthers should have accepted the Rams' initial offer, which they should have, right? But sometimes hindsight, it's always 2020, right? Because at the time when they could have taken that, his stock was higher. And they believed, but they believed in his potential, but didn't want to pay it, which makes no fucking sense to me whatsoever, still to this day. It'll never make sense to me. His stock was high, but then you didn't want to trade him. You said he was off the table because you believed in his potential, but then yet you didn't sign the guy. It's even after you turned down the trade. You didn't attempt it. Because at the time when his stock was high, you could have probably signed him for a cheaper deal than what he would have signed with the Giants, and he'd still be on the roster. And your cap space wouldn't be in so much hell. But the landscape has changed in the NFL, guys, and so the Panthers had to adapt. John Harbaugh, that is an idiotic statement. A pass rusher is more important than an offensive line. What's the most important position in the NFL? The quarterback position. What do you have to do to be able to win football games in the NFL? Protect your quarterback. So, wrong answer. That's a wrong answer there. Yeah, and John, go look at their quarterbacks. John, go look at the quarterbacks. Like, don't give me that. Like, you can't even say the Cleveland Browns, they had shitty ass quarterbacks. You're talking about one offensive lineman. Like, still doesn't make sense, John. Still doesn't make sense. To me, that this trade, though, guys, when you look at it broader perspective, the trade was not a fire sale. Yeah, it was a calculated decision. You had to maximize the long-term value to rebuild it strategically, right? We're in one offseason of this. Actually, I think it's a true rebuild right now because strategically you can't fill all the holes in one. offseason. They want to rebuild the Panthers defense. I think that the Panthers wanted to keep him here, but the money just didn't make sense. So instead, they went and then tried to enhance their draft. So now we're in position to potentially acquire, additional playmakers, which is what they did. Trade up in the draft. That's what they did. The rebuild is not just about replacing Burns. It's about creating a balanced and competitive team. I think a lot of people don't think about that when it comes to a guy like Brian Burns. You can't, if you sign Brian Burns, you don't sign Robert Hunt, you don't sign Damian Lewis, you don't get Xavier Legette, you don't get Jonathan Brooks, you don't get Jadavion Sanders, you don't get the extra second round pick that you were able to get when you made that trade with the Rams. You don't get that future second pick to replace it. You don't extend Derek Brown. So there, you got to think about all the moves that it was made. John Harbaugh, the Texans changed their franchise when they drafted CJ Stroud. Be real with yourself, dude. That one player the Texans added to change their franchise was CJ Stroud. The Rams changed their franchise when they brought in Matthew Stafford. Well, the JJ Watt years was not any good because it wasn't JJ Watt. It was Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson every year, John Harbaugh, was throwing for almost over 4,000 yards every year. John, you are delusional if you think a pass rusher is more important. Are you saying that now, John Harbaugh, that pass rushers are more important than the quarterback position too? Are you going to say that too? Even if you weren't talking about Will Anderson, CJ Stroud over Will Anderson changed that franchise. Deshaun Watson over JJ Watt changed that franchise. The quarterback position changed the franchise. Pass rushers do not make your team. It doesn't take an elite pass rusher for your team to get over the hump. It takes a quarterback. This is a passing league in the NFL. It makes no sense. Do I think that a pass rusher definitely helps? For sure. But to a certain extent, John. I don't think that the Carolina Panthers can yet say that this trade was a fleece or not a fleece. Right? I think it depends on how Brian Burns pans out over there in New York, number one. I think it depends on how everything pans out between these draft picks, the guys that we signed, the guys we were able to sign, the guy, Derek Brown extension, and Bryce Young. I think it depends on all of that, those factors, to see if this is a fleece or not. I think it's a strategic move because it's reflecting reflecting sound financially, and and team building principles. But because you freed up cap space, you acquired draft capital, and then you invested in one of the most important things in the NFL, your offensive line. The Panthers set the stage for more substantial rebuild. I think losing a guy like Brian Burns is never easy. But our front office, I think, showed its foresight in prioritizing long-term success over those short-term gains. So I think that this trade is far from being a disaster or being a fleece. It could very well be a pivotal moment for us, but it could end up being a disaster one. But it's hard for me to say that it's a fleece yet when we haven't seen the production on the field from the signings, the extensions, the the draft from the Carolina Panthers standpoint, and Bryce Young's development. I need to see that before I say it's a fleece. It could be, it might not be. But again, to me, it's kind of hard to even say that with all the sightings, the draft capital, the cap space, and the investment on the offensive line. Okay, John, and who was the quarterback? Okay, but the Texans missed the playoffs for 9 straight seasons for that. And then they went 10-6, 12-4 in the first 2 with JJ Watt. Okay. What does that prove, though? That's 2 seasons. And then what happened after those 2 seasons? They went 2-14. They went 9-7. They went 9-7. Nine and 7, then 4-12. It's 2 seasons. They didn't win a Super Bowl. I mean, after that was 2 seasons. And the league has changed ever since, John. The league has changed. And that might be so, John. But that was 2 seasons. For me, I don't want just 2 seasons, John. I don't want just 2 winning seasons. I want 10-6 and 12-4 every year. Again, neither one of them did. But again, in this NFL now, John, in the landscape of this NFL, you can't tell me that the offensive line and a quarterback is less important than a pass rusher in the NFL. An elite pass rusher. You can't tell me that. And we're talking about today. We're not talking about 2014, 2013. We're not talking about that. You can't tell me all right. So what do you so I know, but you 100% think it's more important. Okay, chat. Okay, chat. Everybody in the let's put up a hold on. Let's put up a poll for John. Let's put up a poll for John. We're gonna end the poll that we have now. Let's put up a poll for John. Because I'm interested to see what this poll looks like after we do it. I'm gonna end the poll, the current poll. We're gonna put a new one up. What position group? We'll do what position group? What position group is more important? O-line or pass rush? So I'm going to let that sit there for a second. Because I mean, there's no way. I just don't see how you can sit here and say and tell me with a straight up honest, your straight up honest opinion that you truly believe that. Because the debate between the importance of pass rush and offensive line in NFL is a nuanced one. Because both groups, I will say both groups play critical roles to determine the outcome of game, right? Because the offensive line does this. They protect the quarterback, right? That's their primary role, protect it. Run blocking, right? And control the line of scrimmage, okay? The thing is if you think about a weak offensive line, John, that can lead to increased sacks, quarterback pressures, and turnovers, okay? Kudos to the pass rush, right? But a consistent offensive line play can lead to more, I would say, more efficient and high-scoring offense. Okay? So I guess another question could be is, would you rather have a weak offensive line and elite pass rush, or a strong offensive line and a strong offensive line and a weak pass rush? Now, when it comes to the pass rush, yes, disrupting the quarterback. You want to disrupt the quarterback's rhythm. I get that. You want to force those mistakes. You want to impact the game flow of the opposing team. So I get it. A dominant pass rush can neutralize the best quarterbacks. And teams with a good, strong pass rush, I will say, overall defense statistics will be better, and you control the tempo. But there is a comparative importance to both of them, right? Both position groups are interdependent, I would say. A strong offensive line can neutral a powerful pass rush. While an elite pass rush, I would say, could probably exploit weakness in an offensive line. It's important that I think the importance can vary, right? Especially with specific matchups and game planning, right? For instance, a team with a weak offensive line and a strong pass rush, right, might be more decisive. Conversely, against a team with a potent defensive front and a solid offensive line becomes more crucial. So you got to think about the positional impact. I think that here, I mean, we're diving deep into this now. So don't back out now, because I might have you now that I've thought about it. I might have this argument done. You got to think about the positional impact. The quarterback position is seen as the most crucial in the NFL. So therefore, the offensive line role in protecting the quarterback can be viewed as slightly more critical, since it directly influences what? Your quarterback's performance. However, I will make this point. Disrupting the quarterback through a pass rush can be equally game-changing. So I think both the pass rush and offensive line, I think they're both vital, right, to a team's success, for sure. But if I have to choose, I can tell you that a lot of people will disagree with you, John, that the offensive line holds a slighter edge in importance, because because here's the reason why. Not only does the offensive line protect the most crucial position on the field, but it also establishes the foundation for both the passing and the run game. It's two factors there. Best teams in the NFL typically excel in both areas. But you have to sometimes you don't have that. Most of the time, they have to take a balanced approach in the NFL. I mean, you just. This is a funny debate, because let's look up every team in the NFL playoffs. So from this, it says that the elite units were Detroit, Philly, which they got bounced in the wild card, right? Lions, they made to the NFC title. Ravens made to the AFC title. Falcons, they didn't even make the playoffs last year. Rams, they made the playoffs. But I don't remember if they won or lost. Who did they play? I don't know if they won last year. Who'd they played last year? Raiders. I don't know how the Raiders are in here. They didn't even make the playoffs. So the quarterback position. Broncos. They could have made the playoffs, but that was wild. Minnesota probably could have made the playoffs if Cousins didn't tear his Achilles or his ACL, whichever it was. Indianapolis, Dallas, they got bumped. Good seasons, but with obvious flaws. Champions, Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, they lost. The Ravens, Green Bay, they won in the wild card, made it to the Super Bowl. 49ers, Miami lost. Average, forgettable. Washington, the worst offensive line, said average and forgettable. Tampa Bay beat the Eagles in the wild card. Cincinnati didn't make it. New England didn't make it. Saints didn't make it. Pittsburgh, Cleveland Browns, they made it. Chicago, Texans, Titans. Dude, so are we going to be tier 6? Arizona Cardinals, tier 7, the quarterback killers. Carolina Panthers. Jacksonville was Jets, Giants. Jeez. On that ranking tier list, that's crazy. Hit the wrong button. My bad. Hit the wrong button. So, offensive line rankings again. To John's standpoint, I get it. I'm gonna say agree to disagree. I think I'm right. He thinks he's right. Again, I think the offensive line is way more important. Again, I think it holds a slighter importance because it's not only does it protect the most critical position on the field, but it also establishes two foundations of your offense, which is the passing and the run game. I think that's more critical than having one elite pass rusher making a play. Now, I get it. I think that it does make an impact when you have a guy who can neutralize that quarterback, who's putting him under duress constantly, right? Forcing him to throw the ball away, forcing him to throw an interception, or getting the sack, right? And it can control the tempo of the game. So there's both sides to that argument, right? There's both sides to that argument. So, all right, let's continue. I want to look back a little bit since we're talking about this, because the 33rd team, shout out to them for the content today, because they came out with another interesting thing here. They came out with an interesting table here. the rookie quarterbacks with the worst EPA / play this millennium. This is the worst rookie season quarterback EPA play since 2000. You got Josh Rosen, Jimmy Clausen, Bryce Young, Chad Hutchinson, Kyle Orton, Sam Darnold, Blaine Gabbert, Josh Freeman, Kyle Bowler, Bruce Gronkowski, Davis Mills, Justin Fields, Deshaun Kaiser, Mitch Trubisky, and Tua Tagovailoa. Okay? Maybe for some of you guys don't know what EPA is. Okay? So EPA stands for expected points added. So this is a statistical measure used in the NFL to evaluate the impact of a play on the score of the game. So so what this saying is it provides a nuanced view of a player's or a team's performance by considering the context of a situation in each play. All right. So expected points, how this is calculated is expected points. So EP is the number of points a team is expected to score based on the down, distance, field position before a play begins, right? So those expectations are derived from historical data and reflects the average points teams have scored from similar situations in past games, right? Change in expected points, EPA, is the difference between the EP before and after a play. So, for example, if a team starts a play with an EP of 2.5 and it ends with an EP of 5.0, right? The EPA for that play is going to be 5.0 to minus 2.5, which equals 2.5. So conversely, that play results in a turnover, significant for loss. That EPA could be negative, okay? So this is something I wanted to explain to you guys so you understand what we're looking at here. But I want to look back at Bryce Young's rookie season a little bit. Because there's two burning questions that I have to ask you guys, right? What went wrong and what can be fixed going forward? To put it bluntly to you guys, Bryce Young's rookie year was absolutely atrocious. Statistically, again, was among the worst in the league. Ranked 31st among quarterbacks in both EPA per play, as we're seeing here, and success rate, right? So with only Zach Wilson, right? So I want to answer this question with what they're saying here at 33rd. So they're saying that when you read this, that Bryce Young was 31st among quarterbacks EPA per play. And success rate with only, as it says here, Zach Wilson faring worse. His 5.5 yards per attempt were the lowest among qualified quarterbacks. He took more hits and sacks than almost anyone else. The only person that was above him was Sam Howell. So adding to the misery here, right? A league high of 15.3% of Young's passes were charted as inaccurate. 15.3% of his passes charted as inaccurate. So since the turn of the millennium, there have been, as you can see here, 63 qualified rookie quarterbacks in terms of passer rating, right? So 2023, he ranked 61st in EPA per play, and 54th in success rate. So these numbers, to me, I would say are alarming low, yet they don't tell the whole story. Okay. Bryce Young was like in a pressure cooker, right? The significant issue here, let's be honest, and I think that when you read this a little bit more, right? When you read this a little bit more and you read into it, the constant state of pressure, that was the significant issue. It's hard to settle into a rhythm when you're perpetually under fire every single play, or almost every single play, I should say. This is where Dave Canales has to come into play. He worked wonders with Baker Mayfield, who had his best season from the pocket last year. So under his guidance, I would say Mayfield's highest rate of dropbacks ended in the pocket at like 86.3%. And he achieved the second lowest pressure to sack rate of 18.3. So the question is, can we replicate something like that for Bryce Young? Can that magic be done? Could it be the game changer we're looking for? Clean pocket, but it still affects Bryce Young a little bit, because interesting enough, even when Bryce Young had a clean pocket, his performance was still bad, because when he was under pressure, he ranked 31st in EPA per play, right? So just ahead of Mac Jones. So this indicates that the problem isn't just the offensive line, but it was also Bryce Young's ability to capitalize on good conditions. Okay. Now, again, it's not all on Bryce. There was a lot of lack of support and scheme issues. And this is what this explains. If you want to go look it up on 33rd on Twitter, shout out to them for the content for today. But Young's supporting cast didn't help matters either. Okay. So let's go down into this a little bit more. Okay. So I'm going to highlight this right here. Actually, I'm going to highlight all of this right there. I'm highlighting that. There was a lack. Again, it wasn't all Bryce's fault. That's what we're alluding. That's what 33rd team's alluding to. So there was lack of support, scheme issues, right? Okay. So the supporting cast didn't help, as you can see there. Adam Thielen was our top wide receiver, right? Caught 25.7% of the targets and accounted for 31.2% of the receiving yards. Jonathan Mingo had obviously a challenging rookie season, similar to Bryce Young's struggles. But among of the 12 players with at least 10 targets on the team, 8 had less than a yard per route run, which is a abysmal support. Okay. So moreover, on the offensive scheme, didn't do Bryce Young any favors either. He threw the 4th lowest rate of slants, the 3rd lowest rate of crossers, and the 3rd fewest of the easiest routes to help a quarterback get into rhythm. So even when these plays were called, they failed miserably. The Panthers were the worst screen. Look at this. Then it says they were the worst screen team in the league. They averaged negative 0.53 EPA per play on screens. While under Dave Canales, Mayfield ranked 2nd in the league at 0.28 on screens. All right. So as we go on, we start at the top here. So I think this is a season, last season needs to be a season that we need to just try to forget. And we just need to look forward, right? I think that's all what we're trying to do here. What it's saying here is that a few situations could be as bad as the one Young endured last season. So the offensive scheme was so ineffective, it got the coach fired mid-season. But yeah, y'all want to say that a lot of y'all want to say, well, it wasn't Frank Wright's fault. It wasn't Frank Wright's fault. Remember that vanilla offense that we were all complaining about? It's funny. A lot of us Panthers fans were so delusional at the end of the season that we didn't say, a lot of people were saying it wasn't Frank Wright's fault. It was just going all to the blame on Bryce. Just because maybe Frank Wright wanted CJ Stroud. But they're even saying the offense was stale. And then they're saying here, as it goes on, this little line right here. There was not enough offensive talent to overcome the scheme's shortcomings. So that means that Young wasn't, and that also means that Young wasn't able to elevate the talent around him. So then it says here, however, basically saying that we made significant moves to ensure that last year was just a blur, right? So now Canales, who played in a pivotal role in getting better play out of guys like they're saying here, Geno Smith and Mayfield, they're saying that his scheme promises better spacing and more strategic control, which is going to potentially give Bryce Young a more commanding presence. All right. Then it goes on to talk about the roster improvements and stuff like that. So, yeah, we revamped the roster, right? Due to his height at 5'10", the interior pressure that he faced, as they're saying last season, we went out, got Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis. Massive deals, substantial deals, right? Wide receiver core upgrades, Deontay Johnson, guy who's consistently able to get separation. Xavier Leggett, they're saying big, fast prospect. We all know that, can run after the catch. Threat and defense is downfield, right? Downfield threat. That I agree with him. These are the exact type of wide receivers that Bryce Young needs, okay? Now, then it goes on to say here, he might not live up to those expectations, right? That's the burden of expectations. Improvements are substantial, but yet the underscore of this whole thing is that the significant investment the Panthers made for this kid has the right surroundings. Ideally, a top pick should make it life easier to those around him and not the other way around. I think Young might not meet those sky high expectations, which is disappointing given the fact that they sacrificed him and they could have gotten CJ Stroud, right? I think there's a different measure of success now for Bryce Young, right? I think Young's future isn't doomed, but the success in 2024 won't be hitting those specific statistical milestones, but I think it's about that broader growth and leadership that he needs to bring. The goal is to improve consistency and him taking control of this offense. It's about showing improvement from last year and being effective with this improvement, with this improved supporting cast this year, right? I think that when it comes going forward, Young has to show flashes, right? Become more frequent, right? that's going to deem him being successful. He needs to become more comfortable and consistent in this offense, right? Harnessing his potential, right? And then taking that from last year and putting it onto this year, right? We know how pivotal it is for Bryce Young in this season, right? We know how pivotal it is. The Panthers revamped this team. They created this supportive environment around him. It has to come from this kid to prove his worth, and he has to silence the skeptics because the improved decision-making, a better supporting cast, I think can help him realize his potential as a franchise-changing quarterback. Now, the journey won't be easy, all right? I think there will be challenges. I think, however, with determination and right guidance, I think Bryce Young can definitely turn the tide and set a path for himself to success. So the potential is there. It's just we need to see it on the field, right? So shout out to the 33rd team for posting both of those things. Kind of gave me the creative ideas for this content. And now this is trending. Look at this. Of course, someone has to start more drama. ML Football on Twitter comes out and says, here's the trending. Nicole Tepper, wife of owner David Tepper, is being asked for her input on draft picks during the draft, this is pretty crazy. First time we've seen the owner's wife helping make picks.
The guy that I like, I said, yeah. He's like, would you trade up for the guy that I like? I said, yeah.
So, I'm going to have to, I need to copy this, and I'm going to actually, let me do this. I'm going to save this. Let me do this instead. So this just came out 39 minutes ago, this whole thing. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Right? Now this is coming out. I mean, there's no reason for this, guys. You know, so this is crazy that was reportedly being asked for input. I guess I didn't even allude to that when we watched the blueprint, right? I guess I didn't think about this. Again, I have said I don't like them. I didn't like how David Tepper was in between Dave Canales and Dan Morgan. I didn't like that. But I guess I didn't realize this part of the blueprint. I don't like this either. Here's why this situation is problematic and why it shouldn't happen in a well-structured NFL organization. I'll say this. Number one, this woman, you can't tell me, has any knowledge of fucking NFL football. So draft decisions for her should be made by professionals with the extensive football knowledge and experience, like scouts, coaches, general managers. Those individuals They dictate their careers to understanding player potential, team needs. Bringing in someone and asking them about this without that type of background, that's like asking a chef to perform surgery. Makes no fucking sense. Makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Like, this is ridiculous. The draft making process, right? The success of draft strategies rely on data-driven analysis, scouting, kind of understanding that player's development. Involving someone without this expertise can undermine, I think, the entire process. I mean, look at even Dave Canales. I mean, he's just got his head down.
Say that.
He looks over at it. Let's see what
The guy that I like, I said, yeah.
I mean, he doesn't even seem to care. I mean, he's just sitting there. Here's the issue between David Tepper and Nicole Tepper, the organizational structure. Still, again, if this, and I don't know how true this is, and I don't know how. I mean, obviously this is true, but I don't know how much they're really involved right now, because we really haven't seen a lot of reports until kind of something like this. But there should be clear roles and responsibility. Effective organizations have clear defined roles. So the owner's primary role, right, is overseeing the business, financial operations, while football operations are managed by the football experts. Blurring these lines leads to confusion and inefficiency, and we've seen that ever since David Tepper's taken over. Another thing, accountability. When professionals make draft decisions, accountability is clear. So if an owner's spouse is influencing these decisions, it muddies the chain of accountability and can lead to internal conflicts and morale issues. To me, there's the perception and morale of this is the perception of nepotism. Allowing an owner's spouse to participate in draft decisions smacks of nepotism and damages organization's credibility. It raises questions about the legitimacy of that decision-making process, and it undermines trust among us fans and players and staff. This is not a good look. The impact on a team morale is that's part of what this can do. Players and staff may feel demoralized that they can't believe decisions are influenced by unqualified people. It creates a sense of like unfairness and reduces the confidence in an organization, especially to committing to trying to build a competitive team again, that what they're trying to do. Here is my solution to this. I'm going to give you 3 of those. I'm going to give a harsh one and then 2 professional ones. First one, David Tepper and Nicole Tepper. Stay the fuck out of football operations for the 100th fucking time and shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up, because you don't know ball. You couldn't tell me a wide zone scheme if you tried. What the wide zone scheme that Dave Canales is going to run. Like, if you can't even tell me the basics of a scheme or the basics of a position and what it entails and how it's supposed to work, don't fucking talk ball to me. But David Tepper and Nicole Tepper, this is a bad look. So here is my best practices for you guys. if you ever watch this somehow. The most successful franchises stick to a structure where the draft decisions are made by the experts. That ensures that the decisions are based on their analyses and the fact that they have deep football knowledge, whether they've played, whether they've coached, or whether they've scouted. Wow, the owner involvement, this is another best practice. Owners have say in strategic direction. They do. They typically, what they do is they trust their football operations staff to handle the player evaluations and draft selections. That separation allows more objective and effective decision making. I know this isn't unheard of. This isn't something that's not new to us. The direct involvement of an owner's spouse in draft picks is highly unusual and unprofessional in the NFL. All right. That's and for Carolina Panthers or any NFL organization, maintaining a clear separation between ownership and football operations is crucial for making informed, unbiased, and strategic decisions that benefit the team's long-term success. So again, it seems like it just doesn't stop with David Tepper and Nicole Tepper and all of them still wanting to get involved with the football operations. They just somehow can't stay. They can't stay out of it. They just can't do it. It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me. I don't get it. It just it just doesn't make no sense, man. It makes no sense. Fuck. Well, yeah, and she stays out the way. Exactly. She stays the hell out of the way.
What John and
But she stays out of the way there in Detroit. So I don't know, man. I don't get it. I just don't get it. The key to this whole ordeal is the fact that again, it's problematic for a few reasons. Lack of expertise, clear roles, nepotism. NFL teams succeed when the draft decisions are left to the experts. Simple as that. David Tepper and Nicole Tepper, take fucking notes. It's fucking ridiculous. So anyway, guys, I'm going to hop off of here. I appreciate everyone joining the live stream. Make sure you do me a favor. Make sure you pound that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Make sure you click that post notifications bell so you don't miss out on any new content. Of course, I appreciate everyone being here. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget about the Discord. Don't forget about follow me on all my social media. Don't forget to check out BetUS. And of course, good argument, John. Great argument. That was a great debate. I appreciate you appreciate you coming in. I think it was a great debate, whether we agree or disagree. It's cool by me. That's what this is all about, man. Josh, I'm glad to see you in the chat. I'm glad to see some people in here I haven't seen in a while. Seneca, I still don't know if I'm still pronouncing you. Domo, who else was in here? Shout out to Domo being in the chat. Marcos, of course, is always in the chat. Chris being in the chat. Mad Chatter in the chat. Raw Walk, Turtle Man. Appreciate all you guys being in here and showing your love and support. So, guys, I'm hopping off. Appreciate everyone in here. And as always, guys, y'all know what to do. Keep pounding. Peace.